The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Yes, the rich get strong, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets never make the great Mama Man, Papa Man.
Hello, I'm Terry Doran. Welcome to Theater for Ideas. My guest in the studio is Patty Hunter. She's a committee member of TRAC, a program for kids we're starting. And our special guest by telephone is Diane Russell. Diane is State Representative Democrat from the state of Maine. She was voted most valuable state legislature in 2011 by the Nation magazine. But today she's talking about this word that I hardly even ever heard of till the last couple of days, sequester, which is the government cutting, slashing all over the place, hurting average Americans. Programs for homeless, programs for medical aid, programs for children, federal wages. And Diane started a petition on moveon.org, which was to, if we're going to have these cuts, then the people who are ordering the cuts, members of Congress and President Obama, should have their salaries cut as well. So Diane, welcome to Indiana from Maine, and thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate having the invite to be on the show.
Well, we're thrilled. Why don't you tell us, we'll start off, just tell us about your petition, what got you to do it and the response you've had on it.
Well, I've been following the sequestration for some time, and I've been remarkably frustrated, just as I think a lot of people have, that there's been such an inaction in Congress for the past 2.5 years, 3 years. It's just been a real stalemate. And instead of doing what's right and doing the will of the people and really moving things forward, Congress has done just the opposite. They have been listening to special interests and corporate interests and have done quite a bit to stalemate any new development. And I think that with a lot of folks, they just don't know what to do, and we're ready to put their hands up in the air, and I felt the same way. And it just so happens that the person that runs the signon.org petition site lives in Portland, and he and I were just sort of talking about this idea and frustration, and he said, well, why don't you start a petition about this? And I said, you know what, it's probably not going to go anywhere. There's probably not going to be that many people that do it, but at least it's something. And instead, we have right now 305,340. That's just a stunning number. I'm just a state rep in a small state, Maine, and to have 300,000 people standing with me from across the country is stunning in its own right. And it also just really talks about how frustrated people are. The comments are really telling, but also the emails that I'm getting back from people. On the one hand, they're really hopeful that a politician is standing up, and maybe that means that other politicians will. But then on the other side, people are saying, I signed this petition, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I've given up. These people don't care. Nobody cares. It's great that you're doing something, but what's really going to come of it? So there's been a real mix of reactions to it, and I think it's, on the one hand, and you and I talked about this earlier on the phone, Terry, you said, well, what you did is brave, or something along those lines, but I don't think it's brave. I just think it's the right thing to do. And what's stunning to me is how many people have come out of the woodwork across the country and said, oh my God, a politician is standing up and saying what we're thinking. It's just so refreshing. And I think that's sad. It's a sad statement that's where people are, that's their baseline expectation, that when someone does something that's pretty common sense, that people are blown away. And the other side is, how frustrated people are that they've just given up, and they've given up hope, and they're bitter and resentful about the fact that I'm trying to do something, because they're like, well, you're not going to do anything. It's not going to matter. And what a sad state to be in. And so I'm optimistic, though, that we have over 300,000 people that have signed on, I have been flooded with emails. I mean, just flooded with emails. I've been flooded with Facebook posts and questions, and I spent the whole weekend just responding to people. It's just been a remarkable experience, and for a small town girl like I am, this is not a small thing. So I don't know what to do with it, but I've been really moved by what's happened.
Well, that's fantastic. Over 300,000 Saturdays sent an email saying 200,000. So in even just a day or so, you've added another 100,000 signatures. And I was proud to be one of them. And I must say that sometimes I feel that way. It's hopeless, frustrating. Another petition. Yeah, right, another petition. But as soon as I saw yours, what struck me was what needs to be done is to respond to these people who make these ridiculous laws that are not necessary, and they are not doing their job. And if we're going to be cut, they should be cut as well. I mean, I totally agree. I think it's wonderful, and I'm so glad that you've taken the time out of all these emails you need to respond to join us today. Now, you started out, I think, after college, working in a convenience store, and you had said that if you didn't show up for work, you didn't get paid. So why should Congress?
Well, it's true, and I think that's the case with so many people. And someone emailed me and said, "You're privileged. You actually got to go to college." And you know what? They were right about that. I did get to go to college, but I also earned it. That took me a decade to do it. I have over $60,000 worth of student loan debt because,
wow.
And when I came back to run for this office, there just weren't jobs around, and so I worked at the local convenience store, and making $8 an hour. What people didn't know, I put on a brave face. So what people didn't know is that I couldn't pay my bills, that I didn't know when there was going to be food on the table, and one of the good things about working at a pizza shop was that there was always food.
Yeah.
And so what people didn't realize, because I was college educated, I presented myself well, and they all knew me from the counter at Colucci's. What they didn't realize is that I couldn't pay my bills, and I didn't know what it was like to live on $8 an hour. It was also a very eye-opening experience for me. I'd never not had a white-collar job. I'd never not had a health insurance or paid sick days or days off. I didn't. And I had a set schedule. I knew when I was working all those years. And so working there was very different. It was a very different experience. And while I knew all along, I can get out of this at some point because I'm educated. My coworkers, that was their life. And they were struggling. And I really just can't walk away from that. And I couldn't walk away from the people who trusted me, who I got to know from across the counter. And I couldn't get away from, the owners of the company that really, they struggle to make sure that they're meeting their bills and that they're employing people. And the people that own Colucci's, there's Bridget, who is this Italian grandma, I call her, and then her brother Dickie, and they're just good people. It's an Italian neighborhood in Portland, and they're just good people. And she hired me when no one else would. But if I didn't show up to work, I didn't get paid. I didn't get to take a day off because I was sick. I didn't get to take a day off because I had a vacation day. Federal holidays, what's that? I don't get paid for that. If I either work or I don't. So why is it that people that are barely making ends meet, who go home with their feet killing them, who go home with their back killing them, and I know I do even now, why is it that those people can barely make ends meet, and when they don't show up to work, they don't get a paycheck? Why is it that folks that are making $174,000 a year, that are doing, that were hired to do the people's work, just aren't getting the job done? And, I know a lot of comments came that they only work 2.5 days a week, and what people mean by that is the number of session days. You do work they are working full time. When they're not in their at session, they're certainly at their offices, they're in committees, they're doing a lot of that. But a full third of what Congress people are doing is raising money, because they're raising money for their next election. That's a full third of their day is raising money. Can you just imagine?
Diane?
Yes.
This is Patty Hunter.
Hi, Patty.
I am going on 61 this year. I'm doing seasonal work. We don't have any life insurance or medical insurance. My husband's going on 64. We don't have Medicaid or Medicare because he's not 65.
Right.
What are we going to do?
I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah.
That's really not an acceptable answer. That's where my frustration comes from. You know, for so much of it, even for most Americans, it's just I picture this haze of clouds that goes on up above us, and we live our lives down below. And in that haze of clouds is where that back and forth goes, and between the Democrats and the Republicans and the haves and the have-nots. This whole debate happens up in this black, dark cloud up above us, and we're still down on the ground doing our own thing. And occasionally something comes down from the clouds that we capture. And when they were doing the budget debate last summer, that's what it felt like for me. I was like, so far removed. This is nonsense, and I just can't deal with understanding what's going on. I've got my own stuff that I've got to do. I've got my own constituents I need to respond to. You know, I have my own life and my own political, not political needs, but I mean, I constituent service work that I have to do. So that whole budget debate was really high up in the clouds for me. But what made it real was when I was on the, when I was walking to work, I had 3, maybe 4 people come up to me and say, "Am I going to get my Social Security check next week?" That's when it became real. It was like a bolt of thunder, and lightning just came down and just hit me.
And members of Congress, I'm sorry, I didn't go ahead. I was just going to say that members of Congress don't have to worry about whether they're going to get health care or retirement. You know, we pay for it. Which brings me to another word that's in the news, entitlement. You know, Obama just said, he's willing to make cuts to the entitlements. Why is Social Security and Medicare entitlements, and their salaries aren't entitlements? Their health care and retirement, that's all entitlements too. And I was glad to hear you say Democrats and Republicans. I know you're a Democrat from Maine, but there's so little difference in terms of what we're talking about, the clouds and the decisions that come raining down on the rest of us. They're from both parties, really. And, you know, I think your experience in working $8 an hour and not having the benefits really had an impact on you, hearing you talk, that you are fighting for those people who are still there, who don't have any choice to go anywhere else.
What about the older people, when, like me, when they reach their 50s and 60s and 70s? How are we going to survive if they cut back our Social Security or Medicare or whatever? This is so unreal. We can't work because the people who have companies will not hire people who are older. They hire the younger ones. Even then,
they're not even hiring us.
Okay,
No,
well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Good point.
There's not that much jobs out there, and how are we going to survive?
You're right. You're so right. And this is what keeps me up at night. You know, for every job out there, there are 4 people looking across the country.
I know.
And I mean, I have some highly educated friends who are just desperately looking, and they are like, and I want to help them. I want to be able to get them that job. You would think that in a position of power that I supposedly have as a state legislator, that I should be able to, you know, help those people, my closest friends, the ones that are there long before anybody knew who Diane Russell was, when I was just a figment of anybody's imagination. I can't help my closest friends.
A lot of red tape.
Can't help. No, I can't, and I can't help the other folks. And it's not a good enough answer to say I don't have an answer for you. And that's what frustrates me the most. When I had to tell those people, I don't know if you're going to get your Social Security check next month. I can't even begin to tell you what that felt like, because I owe people a better answer than that. And I think politicians across this country owe people a better answer than that.
I mean, if we don't start getting, the older people start getting their money, if it's going to be cut back, you might have a mini riot on your hands.
Well, and I think we need to understand that people have been paying into this for decades.
Yes, they deserve to have.
This is not an entitlement. This is an earned benefit. I have been paying into Social Security. I have been paying into Medicare, with the understanding that when I get to be that age, that it's going to be there for me. And my generation is pretty cynical about whether or not we're going to have either.
Oh.
And I think that's unconscionable because we've been paying into it. But more importantly, we've got people who are in the greatest generation. We've got people who are baby boomers. They've been paying into this for decades.
Yes,
and we
I'm
are
a baby
taking
boomer.
we just treat that as though that they're somehow living off the system, and that's just not fair. That's not accurate, and it's unconscionable that the very people that have built this country, that have put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, that now they have a few years to themselves where they can retire supposedly in dignity. We are taking away the one safety net that they have earned, and it's not even a big safety net. I mean, try living on Social Security. It's not big doings. You're not living in a big house.
And also, if we can't get work, older people can't get work because of our age, and there's not going to be any money coming in if they cut it.
Absolutely.
We will starve
Absolutely.
to death. We won't have any house to live in. That's not real. That's not how you should take care of the older people.
Well, Diane, what you're doing is representing the people of Maine, actually all of us, with your, I still think it's brave because so many people don't do it. I mean, it is common sense, but I don't know of any other, like any Indiana legislature, a member of the legislature that's trying to do what you're doing. So, it does take some nerve and a deep sense of compassion and justice. You're irate, as we all should be, and that's admirable, and that gives us hope too. So I want you to know you do give us hope. You inspire us.
You might give a domino effect if you can do it. Other people might see how you're doing it, and they might get interested, and they'll be, going to continue throughout the country. I hope that happens.
Yeah, frankly, when I saw the petition, I thought, wow, this is a great idea. And at first, since it was Indiana, and sometimes they have petitions designed just for Indiana, I thought Diane Russell was just someone from Indiana. Then I saw you were actually a politician, and I was even more impressed because so few politicians take stands like this. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I think the hardest part for me on this has been, and I took a trip to Wisconsin in the middle of the protests a couple of years ago, and it's sort of how I got my first set of notoriety. And I was just going because I needed to know that people were standing up, and I was going for my own personal reasons. And by the time I got back, that trip was not about me; it was about everyone but me. And I remember that people put their hopes and their dreams on my shoulders, and it really meant something to me, and it was very hard to process, actually. And I don't want people thinking that I'm any different than anybody else. That's the thing. I'm just an average kid. I'm 36 years old. I'm still a kid by some people's standards, and I'm just trying to make a difference, just like everybody else in the world. And I'm still trying to pay my bills. I have a $1,700 car that's a Ford Mustang convertible. It needs a new top desperately. It's got duct tape flying on off the back end, which is super attractive, as you can imagine. I'm just trying to piece it together. The car is so reminiscent of me. Like, it needs a new hairdo, and it's got some duct tape pulled around and smoke and mirrors. But I'm just an average, everyday person, and I don't think people realize. I had so many emails from people saying, "It's so great that you're cutting your salary in Congress," and people didn't realize I'm not in Congress. So I just have a tiny little title. I'm just a state representative.
There's a lot of people. Diane?
Anybody can do this. You don't have the title to make it happen. You can make a huge difference. Look at the gal that stood up to Bank of America on their $5 fee.
Yeah.
In this country, you don't have to have a title to do anything. You just have to have nerve, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be smart about it and have a message that resonates with people.
Did you know
I
there's
can't do this alone.
Sorry. Did you know there's a lot of people out there wanting to do bankruptcy because they have credit cards up to their armpits, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They can't afford to pay it. It gets each month it gets more to pay. Then there's interest on top of that. They go to bankruptcy. If they can't go to bankruptcy, then they lose their house, they lose their car, and they're out in the streets. I see a lot of people who are homeless in where we are here in Fort Wayne. And it's just like a domino effect. We just need jobs, and we need to not cut back where we need help.
We've had an austerity domino effect, and we need something that's far more powerful than that. And we need a domino effect of hope.
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautifully stated. You should be a member of Congress. I'm going to vote for you. I'll head up your campaign to get you in Congress. So you have a little more money as salary, at least. You can afford a new top. I know what you're talking about. I have a 91 Cavalier convertible, and I just finally got a new top after my daughter complaining, "Dad, it's wet, it's raining on me, there's holes in the top."
Oh yeah, I've got canvas fixer, I've got some things that I need to put in to pull it together. I mean, it's so representative of me. It's got a little bit of style. She's a little classic.
Yeah.
Not too fancy, but she's got a little duct tape holding her together. That's pretty much that's who I am.
Oh yeah, it's a famous duct tape.
Very, very familiar. Patty remembers when I had the duct tape on my top.
Oh,
and finally the duct tape just wouldn't hold anymore, so I had to get a new top. And what we need to point out, the United States of America is not a third world struggling country. It is the richest country on earth. There is no reason to have these cuts. Everybody should have Medicare. Everybody should have a decent salary to live on.
Work.
Yeah.
I
Work
even
hard,
did
you should be able to earn an honest wage.
Exactly.
I even wrote a song called "No Work for the Masses." I should send that to you, for you to have a listen to it. But it says people continually go to school, but when they come out, there's nothing there for them. So what are they supposed to do?
I'm one of those kids.
Yeah, I know.
It took me 10 years to get through school. When I did, there
10
was
years.
nothing there.
And there's no reason education shouldn't be free to every American. It is in other countries. Other
Or at
countries.
least affordable.
Yeah, affordable. Other countries give their citizens health care. I mean,
Ontario, I'm from Toronto, so they have OHIP, Ontario Hospital Insurance Policy, whatever, plan. We
have
pay
a lot
us.
of people.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people from Canada too. We're a border state.
All right.
Well, Diane, we probably have about 5 minutes left, and I so appreciate your taking the time. I know you're in a committee today and taking the time away from that to join us. So let me just ask you anything else you'd like to say.
Well, if people want to learn more about me, they can go to my website. It's DianeMRussell.com. That's DIANE. M is in Marie. Russell, RUSSELL.com. And you can connect with me on Facebook and Twitter from there and follow the work that I'm doing. And, I can't do this alone. I happen to have a title, and I have used it as best as I can, but this is not about me. This is about a future and a vision for our country. It's about having hope for the future for our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids. And if we don't make a change and if we don't band together,
We'll fall apart.
yeah, we're not going to find the country, 10 or 20 years from now that it used to be when I was growing up. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity for all going forward. So,
because we don't feel secure right now. This is a very insecure country.
We should.
Yeah, we should, absolutely. Just quickly, how did you make the transition from your $8 an hour job to politics, to being a state rep and being elected and running for office and all that?
That's a really great question. So we have a public financing system in Maine. We have a clean election system, and so it allowed me to be able to run for office and not have to be. Part of the reason I can have the voice that I have is that I'm not beholden to donors. I mean, everybody asks, why aren't you running for Congress? One, I have a great congresswoman, Shelley Pingree. If you don't know about her, you should learn more about her. And two, I'm not accustomed to having to raise money, and I don't know where I stand on the asking donors. I mean, if it comes down to it, and I have the opportunity to run, I'm not going to turn that down because I think you can make a bigger difference with the bigger title. But I'm doing make a difference right now, and but public financing makes a difference, and my district is really small and dense, so that the population center happens to be in a neighborhood, if you'll believe it, and that convenience store happens to be the heart of the neighborhood, and I just got everybody, most politicians go knocking on doors and trying to meet their constituents, and I certainly did that, but I actually had all my constituents coming to meet me, the cashier, at the cash register. So for them, I was just a friendly neighborhood cashier, and then they learned that I was running for office. And you know what was amazing is all these people that were just so floored that one of them was running. I mean, they were just so proud, and every time I go away for session, it's for 4 or 6 months, depending on how long the session is, and I come back, and people's faces light up. They're like, "Oh my God, you're back! You're back. You haven't forgotten about us. You haven't forgotten us." And
That's good.
And I haven't. And they come find me at the store, and that's how they tell me what's happening in their lives, and that's how I know where they are on something. And you know, when they see me up there, they see themselves, and that should always be the case. You should never forget where you came from.
And it's
right.
Portland, right? Portland, Maine,
Portland.
where you're from.
Yep.
Representing. And just quickly in closing, Patty would say something, but one representative from Congress, I know you said, has actually taken a voluntary or will take a voluntary pay cut, Tammy Duckworth. So we want to applaud her for that action.
Absolutely. And I actually introduced, it's an after deadline bill, so I don't know if it's going to actually be approved by our legislative council, but we have a governor that's threatening all sorts of things, and we have a minority leader who's threatening a government shutdown in our state, and I just think that's unconscionable. So people asked me, "Are you taking a pay cut?" And I said, "You know what? I put in a bill this morning that would create consequences, financial consequences for us if we had a state shutdown. And essentially, if one of our state workers is going to lose a paycheck, then we're going to lose a paycheck too."
True.
Do you want to say something in closing, Patty?
I just wanted to thank you, Diane, Representative Diane.
Call me Diane.
Okay, Diane. I'd like to thank you for phoning in and answering our questions and sharing with us what you were, what's really deep in your heart and the cause. We believe you, and we're with you. So
Thank you.
thank you, and Terry.
I can't say it any better than that. You've been watching Theater for Ideas Cut Their Salaries with special guests from the state of Maine, Diane Russell, state representative there, and my good friend Patty Hunter joining me here in the studio. I'm Terry Doran. Thank you for watching, and be inspired, like Diane said. You don't have to have a title. You just have to have a sense of fairness and take action. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Diane.
You've got lots of friends hanging around your door, but when the money's gone and the spending ends, they don't come no more. Rich relations and such offer crust of bread. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, and Papa may have. And God bless the child who's got his own